Going on the front lines of the George Floyd protests, I was taken aback for sure. Honestly, I think that after the vicious murder of George Floyd, nothing really was surprising anymore from the police. It was just kind of it was just clear to anybody of color or just anyone watching the news that the police were not here to protect us. They were actually here to violate us in every way possible. Honestly, I would say the most rewarding part was among the George Floyd protests and fighting for Black Lives Matter was my classmates who were just completely living in their own bubbles, higher middle class, demographics of East Asian, just had never really experienced this type of racism from the police specifically, or just institutionalized racism in that capacity. How all been reaching out to me, just trying to understand, fully asking to be part of the narrative, to understand what's going on and to become upstanders as well. So I was really grateful at the opportunity that people were actually I just seen other minorities really come together in a moment that was very, very significant, because oftentimes we're seeing minorities pitted against each other, and so it was just really beautiful seeing everyone come together and trying to understand and support and uplift one another, and just kind of being someone who was able to help inform others of what's going on, the significance of the history, and just helping people understand that institutionalized racism is widely spread and very insidious. I think a lot of people a lot of them before I remember told me Rowan, racism is over, right? And I'm just I was just let's be serious. It's far more widespread. It's just a lot more insidious and covert now, which is why it's just and I explained to them this display within within the George Floyd protest is just a one slip up, honestly, of how deeply racist America is and what it really truly stands for, and how the police and the people that we pay to our tax dollars to protect us are simply here to perpetuate violence in every capacity, especially against minorities, because they are taught to see Black men, Black women, people of color as violent, barbaric, animalistic, and they aim to dehumanize us in every capacity.
I wish people didn't act like it doesn't happen, or it doesn't exist, because I've heard that so many times, and there's this struggle race and who goes through it more, and that all leads to the discredit of our voices, and Black women lose their lives to police brutality too. And our names deserve to be shouted to the rooftops. Our names deserve to disrupt rooms and spaces and systems when we lose our lives to state-sanctioned violence like police brutality. I don't think that advocacy should be reserved for one group, gender, or gender within our community. I think every community member, a part of the Black community that loses their life in such brutal ways to police brutality, should be heard, and particularly the marginalized groups within our community, because it's one thing to be Black, but then it's another thing to be a Black woman. Then it's another thing to be a Black queer person. It's another thing to be a Black trans person. There's so many layers and intersections of our communities. And so overall, I think that there was a shift in that, but ultimately, again, we still have much more work to do. And this cannot just be on the backs of Black women. Everyone needs to be in solidarity with us.
So seeing that video was actually very triggering, because I immediately put myself in that situation. I saw myself. I saw all the Black men that I know, my brother. It could easily be any one of us, and it makes me very angry that police officers treat Black people as lesser than, they deserve less. They don't get as much respect as they give to other people. So that is very disheartening to see. I think that police brutality against women happens a lot more frequently than people think, because, especially to Black women, because police officers tend to be men, and subconsciously men believe, or they tend to act like women are lesser than them or more inferior and don't deserve respect. So they would be more aggressive towards women, which could lead to higher rates of violence. So the media coverage of the George Floyd murder was huge, and it started an entire movement that brought out thousands of people. And it was simply because it was so shocking to everybody that this could happen in broad daylight, and it was recorded. So everybody could see, there was no denying that it happened. Compared to Breonna Taylor, when her death happened just a few weeks later, it seemed to just get lumped into the George Floyd movement. So it was kind of just combined with what was already happening versus her getting her own moment. And I think majority of that is because there was no video evidence of it happening. So it was basically the cops' word against the boyfriend's word and the neighbors. So all types of things went into play for that, compared to people being able to see it with their own eyes.
I'll say this, I wasn't surprised. I was angry. I think it took me to a different stress level, because at the same time trying to support specifically, we have a large population of undocumented families. And I think for some of them not understanding or feeling like this was their fight as well, really just left me in a lot of confusion and wonderings. It was very hard for me. I don't know that I was depressed, but just shocked and a lot of anger.
Would you say you're optimistic about the future?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think being a youth organizer and working with the youth in South Los Angeles, I think that Generation Z or Gen Zs are eventually going to change the world in the way that people view it, right? Because one of the things about Gen Zs, they're more accepting to different folks from different backgrounds and different lifestyles. One, because they have more access to, even if they don't experience a culture in China, they can flip open their phone and actually see the culture in China, right? They can actually see the culture in Japan or in Europe or in Africa or wherever. So the more familiar we get with other cultures and being experienced, the more the ignorance that we have about these different cultures and different groups of folks start to fade away, because we start to see that there are myths that's created through, the racial lens of people that don't understand the differences in cultures.
We're an organization founded to support formerly and currently incarcerated API folks, but not exclusively. Just want to provide space, community for folks who are coming home and behind the wall also.
And how did your idea of racial solidarity change after the murder of George Floyd?
It changed a lot, because I think at that point we realized that we have to come together, right? Because of the this whole system of oppression, right? We all experienced the police brutality, right, growing up. So seeing that is it's heartbreaking, right, to see that our community is getting victimized, right, by these law enforcement. So I think this more, for me, it was just more of a figure out how we can support each other, right? And whether it's to join the folks with the Black Lives Matter protests, or however we can support. I know it's just we're in the struggle together, But that's during the height of the COVID also, right? And with all this xenophobia, right, because of what Trump's statement. And I think it's just more of a time for I think for me, it's just really to figure out what's going on, right? And really just to explore how the interconnected, right, of George Floyd murder and the whole xenophobia sentiments, right? And it's really from the whole system of oppression, So I think when I heard about that, right, it was more man, this that's just like another, you know, another life, right? I think it's just, it could happen to us also, right? It's the commonality. And I think back to when I was younger, right? I was harassed by the police, even when I was like 16, 17 years old. So it just made me realize, like, our marginalized community is not, we're not exempt, right, from that harassment or from that killing. The next time it could be us. The next time it could be the Latinos.
My idea of racial solidarity change is, it didn't really change. It almost like came into fruition. Like, I think this is sort of when I like gained consciousness of like other experiences outside of my own, especially in the context of race. Like, I always knew racism was a thing, but I think it felt so much more real when I saw everything play out in 2020. I remember I had a lot of heated discussions with people about why I thought this issue was important, especially my friends who were on different political spectrums as well. So I would say my activism came in the form of, pursuing journalism also in college, and like seeing the importance of covering these events accurately and portraying them with fairness and accuracy.
I was born in Canada, but my parents are from Iran, and I very much grew up in Iranian culture, so I identify with both. I always knew about the inequities and the discrimination and everything, but I think for a lot of people, including myself, it was a very eye-opening moment that it was so much worse than we thought. You just get like a real look into how severe it actually was, just the state of Black people in America, basically, and what they have to go through on a daily basis. Canada definitely likes to say that we're very diverse and welcoming and open and everything, but that can be true to some degree, but there are also the same like racial inequalities here as there are in the US, maybe not as obvious or as pronounced, but I think what went hand in hand with the Black Lives Matter movement was the treatment of Indigenous peoples in Canada. People of other races can also relate to, like specifically minorities, is like seeing other people that look like you get prosecuted for these things is very like emotionally heavy, even if it didn't happen to you. And that's what a lot of Black people were experiencing, and not just during Black Lives Matter movement, like the entirety of their existence when they had that context introduced to them, like the societal context. And I think that's mirrored in a lot of other social movements too. When you see other people that look like you, or you have some sort of connection to it in any way. And that's why I think like when you have something like the Black Lives Matter movement, it then becomes like Indigenous women, and then it becomes like, it keeps on going because all the oppression is interconnected, and we all feel the same sort of like pull to want to do something, because you just see yourself in the person, and that just immediately humanizes it. Like, it's kind of like having like empathy for somebody, or putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Like, when you see yourself in another person, like whether that be because they look like you or because of something else. Like, I know a lot of these stories, they try and humanize the victim and say, no, they had a family just like you, they had a life just like you, they'd go to school just like you, or whatever it may be. And I just think it's just humanizing and like not detaching from that person's pain, because it's very easy now to just dissociate and just not see those people as human, essentially. That's like a really extreme way to put it, but kind of when you strip it down to the basics, that's basically what it is to me. It's just like dehumanization of somebody based on things that they can't control.
The Bahamas and the people in the Caribbean sometimes have an inclination not to associate themselves with race and relation that happens in the United States. So initially my reaction was to feel more disconnected, as in that happens in America, but it's different for me because I'm not in the America, until I began to realize that I would be returning to the United States, and the emotions started to well up, as this is a lot more serious and a lot more shocking, because it's not just about America. It's about the entire world globally, how it is, how things happen toward people of African descent. I saw different types of discord. I saw some people really try to separate the Bahamas from what's going on in America and be like, and they would sort of use language like, oh, in America, they do this and that. In America, things are very bad. In America, I can't believe that happened. While I saw another group of people more sad and more standing in solidarity with the situation that happened, urging that we need change on a global scale. It's not just in the United States. And I did get that from a lot of my friends who have studied in the U.S., who are currently studying in the U.S., even though they are international as well. And I would like to say that seeing all the protests and seeing all of the community engagement that happened after gave a glimmer of hope into the fact that things can be different, and that we will continue to stand up for our rights and to fight against situations like this. But it also made me sad in the fact that we have to go out of our way to do this. I think now, because of this, within my own studies, having returned to school in the States, especially being in a major or a school that does not have a lot of representation, I have made the effort more to stand up for myself and to stand up for Black people within my community. And I do attribute that to the understanding that I then gained after the George Floyd incident.
Quite frankly, my idea of racial solidarity was shaken with the murder of George Floyd. I felt like we made a good deal of progress on the topic over the past half century, but the George Floyd incident made me wonder not only whether we have really made progress, but perhaps more troubling, it made me wonder if we as a society are truly capable of changing. The incident was especially personal for me. While I'm not African American, I regrettably know how it feels to be marginalized at home. Being a Palestinian American, such incidents are unfortunately far too common for Palestinians living under occupation. I'm an optimist at heart, and so I'm naturally inclined to want to believe we are capable of making the change, and hopefully we will. I'm a believer in the adage, think big but start small. Like for so many Americans, the George Floyd murder helped open conversations among my small circle of influence, families, friends, acquaintances. Yes, it was uncomfortable at times, but the fact that we were talking about racial solidarity openly, I think not only helped with the healing process, but also provided hope for the future, one circle at a time. I think the murder of George Floyd pushed me to speak out more when I see something that isn't right. I think, like so many, I would walk around with my head down, focused on taking care of my own business, and not being so quick to speak out against things around me, including racism. Now, one dynamic that is at play today is that I think racism is far more subtle today than perhaps 50 years ago. And yes, while most people would speak out against clear, obvious racism, I wouldn't necessarily speak out against subtle racial innuendos. The George Floyd murder has pushed me to be more aware of that subtle racism and to speak out when I see it.